I'm going to introduce Ceiba first. As a queer, non-binary two-spirit cultural worker and midwife, Ceiba believes that there is an alchemy that occurs when we have visual representations of our divine, queer, and trans selves. A legacy of shame, grief, othering, and hurt has the potential to be transformed into self-worth, love, care, and respect when our images are treated with the dignity that we deserve. I also believe that systems, or Ceiba, and I do too, but Ceiba also believes that systems of oppression/repression must be dismantled so that we can have access to the resources we need to access the liberated lives that these transformative visual representations can mirror for us. As a mixed medium artist, Ceiba draws inspiration from their daughter, their beloved chosen family, and family of origin, who creates wonders with their hands, bodies, words, and actions, and their path as a midwife, and the abundant queer and trans natural world that we are all an integral part of. Thank you, everyone. Please, round of applause for Ceiba. Sara Ceiba Flores.
We didn't stage this part in advance. This was impromptu, so bear with me. Good evening, relatives. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you for what it took to get to this room tonight. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for persisting. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for believing in yourselves. And thank you for the honor to be here in this room with you, sharing a little bit about myself and my art. I want to uplift. A moment ago, the screen had the other artists on it. I want to uplift the other artists who are here in person and those who couldn't make it tonight and say thank you. It's a true honor to be in a circle of recipients of this mini grant with y'all. You inspire me. Thank you, Bates, for choosing me. My ancestors come from many lands. The ones I know are called Mayan. We come from the area that's now called Tegucigalpa in Honduras. My ancestors also come from Ireland and Scotland. And my transcestors come from all over the planet. And my transcestors are here strong tonight. How many of y'all can feel your transcestors, your two-spirit ancestors, named, unnamed? They're here with us. And they're proud of us. And I'm humbled to be able to speak at times when they couldn't speak. I want to share a little bit about my process as an artist. And I brought to the stage the one sculpture that is not my own on the table. So I'll just tell you right now, I did not make this. But this being this replica of ancestral art is a birthing person. Here's the baby coming out. The midwives in the room know this baby's coming out sunny side up. Occiput posterior, that's probably a little bit more intense of a birth because face is coming up. I always think that, like, they probably just made that so you know it's a head, but that's not the usual way a baby comes out. But babies can be born this way. And I've had this being on my altar for at least 2 decades. And I've looked at them so many times as a midwife and as a two-spirit, queer, non-binary, transgender, expansive being. And I've squinted so hard to see the two-spirit person here. I wanted to see their queerness. I've wanted to imagine that they were just like me. And I can see it if I squint hard enough. But one day, about 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to have clay in my hands for the first time. And I thought, well, wait, what if I actually create the being I've been trying to see? Could I do it? Can I? And I sat at my kitchen table with my daughter, and I began to sculpt for the first time in my life. I didn't grow up with art as something I had access to. I'm from occupied Anishinaabe lands, Detroit, Michigan, and my life was about survival. And when it wasn't about survival, it was about passing and performing to survive. So it was about survival in its own way. And that meant drawing inside the lines and damn not gonna express myself as a queer person with my artistic outlets. So when I sat with that clay the first time and began to sculpt, I felt so free. And on the table back there in my humble offering, you'll see my first sculpture. And many of the sculptures on the table followed him. He's a trans man birthing in his fierce power, in the legacy of his ancestors. And that sculpture, as well as my other pieces, are meant to not just sit on a table to be discussed, while that is really important and I'm grateful for that this opportunity and other opportunities to share my work. My sculptures are really meant to be on altars and to be altars. And in fact, that sculpture that I'm talking about here on your left, I just asked my relative, could I borrow him off of his altar? Because he was sitting on the altar of a trans masculine man who's preparing to conceive. And in fact, I offered to infuse him with the energy of tonight. And then he'll go back to the altar. And that's what my pieces are meant to be. They're meant to be reflections of us in our sacred traditions, looking like us or not, but looking like somebody we might know, so that we can see how beautiful we are, how powerful we are, so that we don't have to squint so hard to try to imagine ourselves into every scene, to know we are in those moments of power. And I'll talk a little bit about each piece, and I really hope you get a chance to see reflections of yourself in the expressions. Before we move from that slide, I guess it's gonna loop. Okay, I get it. Okay, but y'all have seen it enough. There's that one image with 3 of the sculptures, and I just wanna uplift my daughter, who's on her way. Some of y'all know Ruby Quetzal. I hope she walks in the door right now. Her sculpture's there, and it's on the table. And when I started sculpting, she said, give me that clay. I'm going to sculpt too. And she sculpted a being who she said was a parent who was meeting their adoptive baby for the first time. And you'll see that sculpture on the table. And what followed for me was a series of about 5 pieces that are of transmasculine, two-spirit, non-binary birthing people. Let me say that again, because we exist. Transmasculine, non-binary, two-spirit, gender expansive, queer AF birthing people. And as a midwife, I am so privileged that I have actually seen with my own eyes the ferocity of our people giving birth. We give birth with dignity. We give birth with integrity that comes through our ancestors and is our ancestors' wildest dreams. And I spend a lot of time making sure that the details of the faces that I've seen show through. And in these pieces, one of them is called Grit, that you'll see him gritting his teeth. And he's also called The Wound is the Place Where the Light Enters, which I honor Rumi in sharing that paraphrasing of the poetry, because he cracked. And if you work with clay, you know clay is the sacred elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And if you don't treat them just right, they're going to let you know that you're out of balance. And that piece cracked in many places and taught me a lot about humility. There he is. I'll just say one more thing about one of my pieces regarding birth, and then I'll end sharing about the central installation with the plant life. When we create reflections of ourselves, we make new stories, new narratives. And I am a midwife, and I have the honor of attending births. And I'm also somebody who believes that not everybody is going to bring children into the world. That's not everybody's path. It's not possible for everybody, and it's not what everybody wants. So I also want to name that my work is about creative fertility. So I invite you to see these birthing beings birthing themselves. That's also what's happening. And this is an invitation to y'all to lean into what you want to birth for yourself, who you are in your most authentic being, and how you want to share that with the world. Because I never thought of myself as an artist. I'm a midwife, and that's how I identify, along with other ways. But this grant gave me a chance to birth myself as an artist. This piece is queer as nature, and every little part is so queer. Take a close look. There's mushrooms coming out of the head. There's blackberries dripping from the lips. There's fennel pressed into what is the lung space, where the alveoli are for our lungs. And I created this piece at the beginning of the pandemic as a frontline healthcare worker when I thought I would die every time I went into the hospital to care for pregnant people. And I was praying for my lungs to work. And they did. The pelvis, the groin of this piece, is phallus, open shell, caracol, starfish, barnacles, sea anemones, mussels. And I tell y'all, when this piece came through me, all those natural elements of the world came through my hands, and then I looked them up and found out they all reproduce queerly. Every last one of them. Just like us as humans. Again, not about reproduction, always about making a baby, but about the way we make ourselves queerly. as two spirits in our beauty. And I'll close with one of the images that I know has circled through: the two-spirit healer. Healing contains multitudes. Also a self-portrait that started by molding the flatness of the chest that I wasn't born with and expected to have happen at puberty. And then molding the fullness of the breast of what my chest does look like. And the rest of the piece built around that incredible ability to contain multitudes that we have as two spirits. Beyond just the sacred feminine and masculine. Beyond. Infinity. Abundance. Plant medicine is pressed all into this being. Psilocybin mushroom caps are on the knees, inspired by the incredible Xochipilli, who is a guide for many of us. And the Mayan noses of my ancestors and my own nose came through in that sculpture all in about a day. The whole piece came together in about a day. And I'm so honored that this piece was able to sit on an altar for the Mexica danza, the two-spirit danza ceremonia that was recently, I love it, right? Recently offered by the colectivo that Tlahuitzpapalot and myself are part of, BAM Cuties, Bay Area, Mexica, queer, two-spirit, trans, danzantes. And that piece was able to actually sit where they were made for, on the altar. Because again, that's my offering to y'all, is that if you have an altar space, if you have a sacred space, and you would like these sculptures or one of them to be there, that's why I made this medicine for you community. Thank you so much. I'm so honored. Oh, Mateo.